you doing? Welcome to the channel. Thank you for taking the time. So let's get into this Redfall drama because this is a hot topic right now. This is one of 3 games that Microsoft has for this year that's supposed to be the AAA blockbuster. Here comes Microsoft, look out Sony. All of the acquisitions, they're going to start bearing fruit with Redfall. Today, the reviews are officially out and this game is just getting scorched right now. This isn't a review. I didn't review the game. I haven't played the game. I don't have an Xbox. I don't have Game Pass. Kind of wish I did, to be honest with you. This is the type of game that is usually right up my alley. I love looter shooters. I love vampire lore. This seems, the art style looked pretty cool. This seems like a game that would be just for me. But seeing how this game actually runs, seeing all of the problems that this game is having right now, it would have been fun just to at least experience it for myself and to actually provide some footage for you to look at so I can show you some things in detail. I've seen people posting their reviews. Obviously, they're showing their own gameplay footage, but I think I would like to just watch just some regular gameplay footage and just see if I can catch anything, see if there's anything that's really broken. But this game is just getting lit up right now. So there's a lot of things to talk about. So first thing I want to get up on the screen here for the reviews here is this is over on Metacritic right here, and I've said this before, and I'm not changing my opinion here. I don't think that Metacritic is the end all be all. I don't think that, you know, whatever Metacritic says, it's the truth, because once again, you're dealing with reviewers who are media. They get paid to review games, and as I said before, I think there's a lot of quote unquote gamers in media who are reviewing these video games that are not gamers. So anyways, let's look at the Metacritic score here. It's got a 63, and if you don't know, if you're, you know, normie, 63 is not good. Now it's, you know, obviously from the highest you can get is a 100, and 63 you would think is like, you know, it's like not too bad, sort of mediocre, but for games, most of the time, middling to decent games are in the 70s, and then your good games are in the 80s, like low 80s, mid 80s. Then once you get to like the high 80s, the low 90s, that's typically like considered a great game. Now again, I'm not going to change up my pace here and all of a sudden start thinking that, oh, I like this now because they're trashing Redfall, they're trashing an Xbox game. No, you can take it with the same grain of salt that I would talk about any other critic, but it is important to point out that in the gaming industry, Metacritic is I won't say respected, but it is a notable barometer to see like what is going on, like what is the industry as a whole, how do they feel about the game, you know, because as much as I don't like media, you can't deny that if you go watch or read 10 different reviews from 10 different media sites, more than likely you're going to find someone that plays games the way you probably play them, has the same tastes in games, and will have a lot of the things that you like. And I can't deny that, because there's been plenty of reviewers that people would knock a game or it wouldn't be getting that good of scores, and then I would go to certain reviewers and they'd be like, oh, this game is really good for all these reasons. Well, I'd go and play the game and I'm like, yeah, it is. It's really good for all those reasons. And I want to get into that too a little bit later, because I think there's some merit to that, but I think that's also being used as a scapegoat and as a way to block any sort of negativity about for this game. You can see right here, look, it's got a 90, 85, 85, 83. So these are decent scores right here, but then it quickly drops off to the 70s. Then you go further down and it just starts dropping pretty quick. Lots of 70s. Then you start dipping into the 60s. It really starts bringing it down. You get down here, you're in the 50s now, and then it's even got some 40s, which is pretty much garbage. You know, look here, GameSpot, which is a very large media corporation. They push a lot of content. I still think GameSpot's trash, so I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, I trust them now, but them having a review that looks bad, you know, or is a bad review, it is in the industry going to shine a negative light on this game. But it's not just the critics here, and I do want to look at these a little bit because, you know, when you look at the top here, like this guy right here, I actually watched this guy's video, Xbox Era, and if you read what he's saying here, and this is what I mean when reviewers who want this game to be good overlook the negative to make it look good. And I'm not going to read the whole guy's review, but just this snippet here. So, Redfall is fantastic in most ways. A few baffling design decisions around its co-op implementation and some frustrating technical issues hold it back. It is fun as hell solo and ridiculously so in co-op. With a little post-launch support, it is going to become something special. That may end up being Arkane's worst reviewed title ever, but it is going to be their most successful. Alone or with friends, Redfall is a game any fan of the genre should play. So right there, how do you say like baffling design decisions? How do you say that and still give it such a high score? I mean, because to me, baffling design decisions would mean, what the hell are you doing? Why did you design the game this way? Why does it play like this? Why does it look like this? And then right here, and then this is another red flag for me. With a little post-launch support, is going to become something special. So what you're telling me right now, what this reviewer is telling me, is that this isn't something special right now. They're admitting in their review that this game is not special, but it's got an 85, which is a very good score, and and then right here, the next line, this may end up being Arkane's worst reviewed title ever. So they know, right? They know, this reviewer knows that this game is not doing good or looking good, but they're going out of their way to make it seem like, no, really, give it a shot. It's a good game. I want to talk about something real quick because I heard this several times in people's YouTube reviews, and that was, the game has problems. The game is lacking in this area, struggling in that area, doesn't perform well, crashes, does all these terrible things, but it's fun, so it's okay. It's good because it's a fun game. If a game crashes, and if a game is missing very key components that make it actually a first-person shooter or whatever genre that is, how do you say that? How can you tell someone this is really good and worth your time, and I really liked it, but it's missing all these things? It's like saying, you know, I love this pizza, it's delicious, but it's missing cheese. It doesn't come with cheese, and the sauce is really not good, and it's kind of just tastes bad, but the crust is pretty decent, but the pepperoni was raw and it didn't taste good. It's like, I'm like, no, I don't want to eat that. I'm going to get sick. I don't want any piece of that. I don't want to put any money down for this game or spend some time on this game if it's missing a bunch of features and it's lacking in so many areas. But the thing that everyone keeps jumping to is, oh, it's fun. It's a fun game. So don't worry. Don't let the negativity bring you down. That to me is a red flag. I just don't like that. When I hear that, I know what you're trying to do. You're used car salesman. You're trying to sell me on something that isn't good, something that you really don't think is that great, but you want it to be great, really, really bad. Like, it's really important for you to sell this pizza, to get me to eat this, and it's not going to happen. But you know, you keep going on here, and like I said, you know, it starts to drop. I'm not going to go through and read all these, but you know, I do think it's important to. I think it's important to read reviews and watch different creators and listen to what they have to say about the games that they play, because as I said before, they may be just like you. They may have the same feelings about certain genres, about certain things. They may not give a damn about graphics. They may only care about story, or they really don't care about story. They just want to blow things up and they want it to be pretty and have particles. Everyone has different tastes, but that doesn't mean you can defend broken games that are lacking features, or try to say that, oh, this game will be good in the future. This will be good. Okay, so it's not ready then. You're admitting that the game isn't ready. Just like that person was admitting that it's not special now. It's going to be special in the future. That's defending. You know, you're trying to defend something that's indefensible, in my opinion. So this is OpenCritic. This is another site. I'm not super familiar with OpenCritic. I've heard it a lot. A lot of the YouTubers that I watch, they mention Metacritic and they mention OpenCritic. I don't know if they're even connected to the same. I don't know. So I'm not going to act like I do, but I just hear it a lot. So I was like, let me check it out. And this right here, this says a lot. So your top critics, the average is 64. So again, it's hitting that low 60s here. But this is the big thing right here. This 23% here, critics recommend. So only 23% of all of the reviewers, or the critics that gave it a 64, only 23% of them actually recommend this game. Keep in mind, this is a game that is on Game Pass. So if you have Game Pass, you don't even have to spend the money on it. And they're not even, like, most of them, a majority of them aren't even recommend you play a game that you get already. Like, it's there. You already have access to this game. That says a lot to me. That speaks volumes. So we get down here and you know, there's Games Radar, there's the regular, like there's GameSpot again, IGN Spain. They really liked it, giving an 8. Attack of the Fanboy. I read this whole review and it's like, okay, their name says it all. I popped open YouTube and I just clicked on Redfall. Was already there, so I just clicked on it. And I just wanted to take a quick look at these because this is really telling of how the gaming community is feeling about this game and how well it's doing. So you look right here. This one cracks me up. They want Xbox to close down. This guy right here, I want to talk about people like him in a second, but yeah, whatever. You know, Redfall is the worst game of the generation. What was the other one? I saw a few. Trash and question mark. The truth about Redfall. Redfall is not worth your time. Redfall rants and says garbage. You know, and a lot of people use these thumbnails and stuff where they'll take a clip, or I'm sorry, a still of the actual game. And I saw this character in another review, and the character models in this game are not good. You see right here, David Jaffe, and he is, you know, he likes to bag on Sony. He loves to defend Xbox, but even he is saying, you know, even the title is, and the title of his video I thought was weird. Was Redfall Law, F it, who cares anymore? Dang it, Phil, come on. Like, that's interesting title to your video, but he has come after, Sony in a lot of ways. Like, he was the one who came out and said that God of War Ragnarok was DLC, the same animations that were being done in the first game. It's just reused assets and that type of stuff. So, and a lot of people, especially a lot of people who are Xbox fans, they jump on that wagon. They're like, even David Jaffe says so. And it's like, dude, whatever. I really don't give a shit. He's just a guy. Go a little bit further down. I saw, right here, mediocrity, the problem with Redfall. So you can tell just by looking at this, there is a lot of negative press that this game is getting right now. And I think that the thing that I want to talk about the most, you know, because, you know, like I said, I'm not playing the game. I want to, you know, like I want to play this game because I love bad sci-fi. I just love it. I love cheesy sci-fi. I love just those B and C movies. Like, one of my favorite movies is Starship Troopers. And, you know, I think that movie's fantastic. I love that movie, but I understand that it's very cheesy and the acting is overdone, but it just feels like I don't know, it just has all of the things that I like about science fiction and action movies. It's all there. Drama and, you know, there's sad moments and everything, but objectively, I know that game is considered pretty cheesy and corny, but I love it. So playing a game like this, for me, I wouldn't necessarily look at it like, I don't look at these reviews and just say, oh, well, it's going to be bad. I know it's going to be bad, so I don't want to play it. And it's like, well, no, if I had Game Pass, it's technically whatever the price of the monthly subscription is, so why not give it a shot? Maybe I would like it. Because like I said, too, and I do believe this, don't listen to people's reviews and take it as that's 100% the fact. There's nothing changing That's the, you know, whatever this person says, I'm going to do whatever they say. I don't agree with that. I'm sorry. I don't think you should be that way. And I don't agree with people who they listen to their trusted reviewers, their one or two reviewers that they go to, and they just say, whatever this person, if they say it's bad, then it's bad. You know, if they don't like it, then it sucks. But if they love it, then it must be a game that I'm going to spend my money on. But it's okay to stick your neck out there and look around and just say, you know what, I'm going to watch a couple of different reviewers from different sites and get sort of trying to get a feeling of the pulse of what people are saying about this game. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I really don't. And I don't look at these reviews and I don't see these, even though there's a ton of negative press, I wouldn't recommend just taking all of this negative press and saying, well, the game is bad because everyone says so. Everyone has to find that out for themselves. But I don't think that means that all of these people are liars. And I don't think that it means that all of these people hate Xbox and they want Sony to succeed. And this is just a witch hunt. And this is just, they just want this game to fail. I don't think so. I really don't. That's what this is about, right? Reviewing video games, what these people do. I don't think that there are people that are absolutely just, you know, they're hardcore fans of Xbox or Sony or Nintendo. And there are plenty of them who, no matter what happens, it's never Microsoft's fault. It's never Sony's fault. It's never Nintendo's. They don't do anything bad. You have those people in all three of those camps. But I still think the best way to learn if a game is good or not is to play it. Okay. But I think too many people are taking the notion of it's fun, or I don't care if it's broken. I don't care about these things. I think it's amazing, so it's a good game. And all this stuff is just negativity, and people just want to bring it down. No, sorry. You're putting way too much stock with your feelings. Like you're basing whether or not a game is, the quality of a game is good based on how you feel. And I would never do that. I wouldn't recommend anybody do that. But that's really what's going on. There is a lot of that. A lot of people are saying that. And a lot of the guys who were at the paid for event that Microsoft / Bethesda / Arkane paid for a group of YouTubers, they flew them out to LA. They got to sit and play this game for like 90 minutes. And then they all went back and reported on it and talked to their base, talked to their fans. That's fine. I don't see anything wrong with that. You get the invitation, sure, why not? Go and enjoy yourself. But there was plenty of guys who did not report on the shortcomings of the game, on the shortcomings of their experience. And they came back and they told their base, this game is amazing, get excited for it. And then as soon as the 30 frames per second the video came out, and it was like, the announcement came out that there was 30 frames per second, not 60 FPS, everyone changed their tune pretty damn quick. And now that the game has come out, the next blame is Arkane. And what did Arkane, what did they show us? Like, this isn't what we played. I didn't play this game. I played something better than that. And furthermore, they're going on saying, oh, I knew this game should have been delayed. I tried to tell people. And it's like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. And I said this in my last video. You know, zero accountability is a lack of integrity, in my opinion. If you can't be accountable for your mistakes and you're going to quickly blame the next best thing, like whatever's closest to you is going to catch the flack, you're a punk. You know, I don't like people like that. I don't like being around people like that. There's none of my friends that are like that. And I wouldn't want to be around someone and try to work with someone who was like that. And I've had to work with people in, you know, just 9-to-5 jobs and stuff, you know, where you're working with someone who is very quick to pass the buck, to quickly make an excuse. Oh, I didn't know. They didn't tell me. I was never shown that. Or they come up with a shit idea, and then as soon as it falls through, it's like, oh, well, I heard that from so-and-so. I was just trying to carry the torch for them. And, you know, they won't fall on the sword. They won't have any accountability. Those people suck to work with. And I've worked with a few of those types of people and can't stand them. or they, they like to take credit, for shit that they didn't do. So that's going on too. I've seen that. I was watching a stream last night. I swear, dude, it was like listening to a guy who was one of these people who was at the event, came back and said the game is amazing, uploaded footage, his own footage, to justify how Redfall was way better than what IGN showed in that video that I broke down, the footage that I broke down. Uploaded this video on Twitter and said, "Oh, this is my footage. This is how good the game really is." And then, now he's pivoting away from that, and he's trying to say that, well, what we played at the thing wasn't, that wasn't indicative of what this game is. It didn't look like this. It was better and everything. And it's like, it's just, I can't stand people like that. I can't. It's so frustrating, and that shit goes on all the time. But the one next thing I wanted to look at too, because I'm on Twitter now, as much as I don't like Twitter, and I just like to, I see so many people post tweets that I think are funny. But this was getting torched pretty good. Let's see what this he posted. Oh, okay, so yeah, this was another cat right here. Mr. Matty Plays. I like this guy. He's a young kid. I listened to his show. I think he is definitely an Xbox fan. He has an Xbox podcast, so of course he's a fan of Xbox. But I've heard him defend some things I think were pretty undefensible, and I think he covers mostly objectively. But there are some times where I just like, dude, you're just trying to make the best out of a terrible situation. I get that, and you're trying not to be super negative. But I still respect this guy's opinion. I still listen to him on a regular basis. But this was interesting because this is someone who, like I just said, I think, this guy, he really tries to make Xbox look as good as possible. And there hasn't been a lot to talk about positively with Xbox and Microsoft. And even he didn't like this game. Redfall is shockingly bad and serves as an eerie reminder of Fallout 76's launch date. This is interesting. If you don't know, Fallout 76 was a Bethesda game. It was an online only looter shooter. I guess you could kind of say it was marketed as like an RPG, but it sucked. I mean, it came out and it was just absolutely broken. It was terrible. So yeah, that's what he's talking about, Fallout 76. He says it tosses away the fun, complexity, and interactive nature of Arkane's former titles for a lifeless world filled with more bugs than creative content. Burn. Yeah, that sucks, And again, this is a guy who actually, likes Xbox. He is a defender of Xbox, and, even he isn't biting on it. This guy, Paris, I've heard this guy too. The idea of an open world shooter filled with vampires is a good one, but unfortunately Redfall fails to deliver. And he's another Xbox fan. That's what he likes. All right. And you got people like this too. And this is the other side of the argument, right? This little cartoon here where you got these cats sitting here playing Redfall, and then this person's complaining, right? They're obviously the Sony fan. This is only 30 FPS, and it says it's the worst Arkane title to date, and they're still playing. They're ignoring him, and then he yells, "Quit having fun." It's funny. I think it's a funny little cartoon, but I mean, that's not what's happening. I don't think anybody's trying to convince anybody that what they're doing is wrong if they enjoy a game. I'm not. I would never do that. If you like a game, like I said, I like cheesy movies. If you like a game and I think it's a bad game, I mean, it's cool. You're enjoying it. You paid for it. It's your dollar. It's not mine. I don't care. But, just funny little stuff. Let's see. Destin, this guy, I used to like him back in the day. He was on Xbox Unlocked or Podcast Unlocked on IGN. He's definitely a big fan of Xbox. There's no denying that. But even he says, honestly, with the state Redfall is in, I'm very worried about Starfield. I mean, this is worth noting. I mean, you're talking about the people who really love Xbox and Microsoft, and they want to see them succeed. They want to see them overtake Sony in the console war, and they're not buying it. They're not digging in what's going on. Let's see. I haven't seen this one. Pack up your batteries. This is Jin's. Oh, what? I don't know what this means. I don't know if that's that person's name. That's really long. when the Redfall reviews drop, remember Horizon was mid. Remember God of War Ragnarok was just DLC. Remember Forspoken's world was empty and bland despite story context. Remember that 2023 was the year Xbox was going to shut all of us up and drop a banger every quarter. Have fun. That's true. You know, I've been saying that. I've been hearing that argument. 2023 is the year, just like 2022 and 21 and 20 and 19 and 18 and 17. Just what Xbox supporters and fans have been saying for many, many years. He's not lying. I totally agree with what this guy just said. Like this right here, this is actually a pretty good one. You know, I mean, they're bagging on it, but I mean, if you just look at the gameplay, you can just kind of see they're not even shooting, and it's just, you know, very lackluster AI. And that's been one of the arguments on top of the bugs and just how the game performs. The AI apparently is really bad. They, you know, it doesn't, they walk through walls. They don't alert to you when they see you. But anyways, so I wanted to get on to some other topics here real quick before I wrap this up, because like I said, I haven't played this game, so this is not a review. And I was going to let this run in the background while I finish up here. And it's so funny how this all started. Like this is what got my attention with this game, was this IGN first. You know, and it was like everyone freaked out over this footage and just said how terrible that IGN was for having this footage. You know, they're sabotaging this game and so on. And looks like this footage is pretty accurate to what the game really is. Just some of the critiques that these reviewers were throwing out there was, you know, obviously texture pop-in was one thing, bad AI. The open world, I guess, is very empty. You know, there was one guy who said that he took off running to a mission and he had to run like 400 meters, whatever. I guess it's meters is the distance that the metric they use to measure distance in this game. And I guess that they ran for 400 meters and didn't see anything. Like they ran from one objective to the other. And this is supposed to be an open world game. What I was being told was this is an open world Far Cry game. That's what this is. This is a looter shooter Far Cry game, co-op that you play with your friends. Far Cry I've played almost every single one of those games. They're pretty condensed with a lot of stuff. You're either going to run into some tiger or a shark if you're in the water. You're going to run into a batch of enemies with guns. You're going to witness, you know, a fight between two factions, and you're going to get in the middle of it. You're going to come across checkpoints and different bases, and there's always something going on in Far Cry games. So obviously it didn't hit that mark, because that's what everyone was saying. It was like, oh yeah, this is Far Cry. This is online Far Cry. And I was like, is it really? I mean, I don't see that happening. All right, so I had a little issue there looking for some gameplay. I thought I had the gameplay queued up, but it was a very small segment. I didn't know how to deal with rewinding it. So this is some gameplay in the background that you're looking at. You know, one of the things that really bothers me about this whole argument back and forth between, you know, the Sony and Microsoft, it was the fact that, you know, Microsoft fans and Xbox fans were coming after Sony for the $70 game. You know, that was like a big deal. Like, oh my God, they're charging $70 for The Last of Us, the remake, and oh, this is ridiculous. And you Sony ponies, they'll eat up anything, and they'll buy a game 6 times and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, listen, I understand the argument about buying a game that you've already beat on the next generation that's been remastered, and then you do it again and again. I understand that argument, but that really wasn't the point. The point was that Microsoft has Game Pass, and they don't charge $70 for games, and Sony sucks, and they're evil corporation, and Microsoft is just doing right by gamers, and they're so fair to their gamers and the consumers and whatnot. So, you know, now this game comes out, and this is a $70 game. Microsoft said this year that their games are going to move up to $70, and it was just totally glossed over. Xbox fans didn't want to talk about it. It was oh, they're just following, you know, they're just following the industry, you know. And it's like, and then the argument started coming out is what's worth $70. Well, that's up to you. That's your call. But to me, when you look at a game and you say, is this worth the amount of money they're asking for, whether it's 60 or 70 or 30, it's in the eyes of the beholder. But you can also look at a game and say, okay, does it technically run good? Is it optimized to run the best? Am I going to get what's worth out of it? Am I going to get my money's worth? Whether that's a 3-hour game or a 30-hour game, it's really up to you. But the thing that bothered me was that it was like Microsoft was they're so pro-consumer. They love gamers. That's what they care about. Phil is a gamer, and Sony is this evil corporation. And then they bag on Sony for The Last of Us remake or reboot or remaster, whatever the hell you want to call it, a game that looked fantastic, ran fantastic, and has one of the best stories ever. Objectively, it did really well. It scored really well when it came out. It's a quality game, and it was just totally, let's just trash Sony, and more to the point, trash the people who support Sony or own PlayStations. And then this game comes out at $70, and it was like, oh, well, it's on Game Pass, so it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. A $70 game doesn't matter if it's on Game Pass, and I think that's bullshit. I don't agree with that. I think you're really coping if you're making the argument that Sony is a piece of shit for charging $70, but Microsoft is awesome because they have Game Pass. I think that's a cop-out argument. I really do. And I heard that argument a ton while watching the reviews. It was just like, who cares if the game costs $70? I didn't have to pay that. And it's like, well, some people may, and I mean, when you look at this game, I'm watching the gameplay and everything, and it's just like, it doesn't look that good. It looks muddy, and I say muddy. That's so funny. It just happens to be looking at mud, but no, like the textures, like everything just looks real flat, and nothing looks, there's just everything. Look at this. This looks like a game that isn't ready. Like, that's what it looks like to me. It looks like a game that was not ready to come out and should have been delayed. And I've heard the argument that you can't have it both ways. You can't say that that we need to have games coming out on a regular clip, and you can't also say I delay games when they're not ready. You either get one or the other. No, that's not true. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. You can have games come out on a regular basis if you announce them appropriately. Don't announce them too early, and you also announce within the constraints of your team. If your team can develop a game and be ready, 12 months from the announcement, then you need to know that. You should be able to predict that, unless there's some sort of catastrophic failure within the company. I think most of what Sony is doing, which is so well right now, is that they're announcing games and they're not getting out over their skis. They're not announcing games too early, and they're being really quiet. And Microsoft is just being really loud. Like, Phil is just, he's a talker. He loves to get in front of people and do interviews and talk about all this stuff and brag about these studios and these games and stuff. But I mean, to me, this is a game that really wasn't ready to come out. And I blame Microsoft for that. I think Microsoft was under a ton of pressure to fulfill the promises that they have been just breaking left and right. I mean, they promised that Halo was going to have campaign co-op. That didn't happen. They promised it was going to have ray tracing. That didn't happen. They had to delay the game a whole year because it came out on a trailer that just looked awful. You look at Starfield. Bethesda was known for not announcing games too early and not delaying games. Now, I'm not a huge Bethesda fan, but that's something to note, right? Like, they haven't delayed any of Bethesda proper games. And the first game that Bethesda proper announces under the Microsoft umbrella gets delayed twice. It was supposed to come out last year, then it got delayed to the first half of this year, and then the first half of this year comes along and they announce it for the back half of this year. It announces in it's not going to come out till November or some shit. That's a red flag. And Arkane is known to make some pretty quality games. They're not a shitty studio. They're not a company that has a bunch of stinkers under their belt. The Dishonored franchise, even though I'm not a fan, is very popular. It sold well. It got a sequel. Prey is another one of their big ones that a lot of people talk about. I didn't play it. That just really wasn't my style of game. But these are games that, that even like I showed the guy earlier, Mr. Matty Plays, he said in his review to go play Prey and Dishonored 1 and 2 before you play this game. And this is a game on Game Pass. That says a lot. And so I think Microsoft pushed this game out too early. I don't think this is Arkane's fault. To me, this looks like a game that has been under it's still in the development process. Like we're like there's another year and a half before this game is going to be what it could possibly be, you know. And I think that's Microsoft's fault. I cannot blame Arkane for this. I really don't, because Arkane, like I said, is a solid studio, and Microsoft is known to be stepping on their toes. They're constantly tripping over themselves. They're constantly making promises. They're always trying to oversell, overhype everything, and they've just been missing the mark over and over and over again. And unfortunately, I think Arkane has just fallen victim to the Microsoft business model. That's really what I think it is, you know. And another thing that people are doing, which I think is really ridiculous, is they're blaming Sony. You know, there's a couple of those videos that I had up earlier. It's like some of those guys are going out of their way to say this is Sony's fault. Like, Sony sucks. And to me, if you make the argument, if your defense of this game being good or bad is whether or not or what Sony does or doesn't do, you lost the argument. You've lost the plot, because we're not even talking about Sony, right? We're talking about Redfall, and that's what these reviews should be about. But the first thing they're going to do is start talking about how Sony is doing something shitty or Sony's a bad company. You know, look at this right here. I mean, I should just go back and just review this footage. Look at this guy. He's floating. I think this is what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to take this footage, because this is like a walkthrough. This is a 3-hour video of a walkthrough. And I think I'm just going to use this footage because it's not mine. It's not, I don't know who did this. This is just some stock footage that's posted on YouTube. I'm going to go through and break some of this down and maybe make a highlight reel of some shit on this game, because I'm just talking into the camera. I look down and I see this crap. Look at this guy floating right here. Whatever this light source is, it looks like there's a lamp in between him, or a flashlight in between him and this guy on the ground. Look at this, no shadows. Look at the geometry here. The tires, look at the sharp edges on these tires. They can't even make a round tire. Look at the wheel well of the truck. Come on. You know, and this was just mid conversation. I look down and see this trash. So yeah, blaming Sony for Microsoft's shortcomings that's to me, if you're going to call someone a fanboy, that's really what it is. And I think there's plenty of those guys out there in the industry right now, and I've watched videos and I've seen a lot of comments where it's immediately, let's compare what Sony is doing to this game, and it's, how do you do that? Why can't we just talk about this game? Why can't we just discuss what's in front of you and hold Microsoft accountable? Because to me, that's the real problem right here. I think the problem with Microsoft, and why Microsoft is not doing well, and why the Xbox is doing so poorly, and PlayStation 5 is just trouncing the Xbox consoles, it's because people are going out of their way to ignore the bad that Microsoft does, overlook the poor decisions, just neglect any sort of negative press, and anything positive that Microsoft does or any of their studios does, it's overhyped, overinflated. There's Microsoft can do no wrong. Xbox can do no wrong. And furthermore, the mentality, there's something wrong with that mentality when you look at something and you say, if only this didn't exist, if only this didn't exist, if this one entity or this person or this company or this political party, if only they would just get out of the way, it would be utopia. Everything would be perfect. I'm sorry, but that's a really shallow and lazy way to look at things, because Microsoft is making mistakes. They're fucking up all by themselves. They don't need Sony to make any mistakes. And Sony is making mistakes too. Okay? Look at the Last of Us PC port. That was terrible. It was awful. I mean, it came out, it looked like trash. You know, it was broken. It wasn't ready. So Sony makes mistakes, but that's Sony screwing up. Like, what does Microsoft have to do with Sony launching a shit PC port? You know, I mean, Forspoken isn't even a first-party game, but they paid for the rights. They paid for exclusivity on that game. So Forspoken can only be played on PlayStation consoles, right? I'm sure maybe in like a year or whatever, it's going to release on Xbox or whatever. But that game, to me, I never liked it. I never looked at it and thought it was any good. But you're talking about a game that technically didn't, like, it wasn't working really well. It was a pretty vapid and boring game. And it's like, okay, it's a middling game, whatever. You know, it's like, I didn't have any interest in it anyways. But what does that game and Sony making that deal to get that game exclusively. What the hell does that have to do with Microsoft? Not a damn thing. It has nothing to do with Microsoft. That's a Sony decision, and it's just not a good one. You know, back in the day when Sony made the PlayStation 3, they used the cell technology and to try to use some proprietary bullshit, and it was a terrible move. And then they went out and charged us $600 for a console and told people to get a second job because it's so worth it. That was Sony's mistake. That was Sony being fucking scummy. That was Sony being a piece of shit, and it had nothing to do with Microsoft. But for whatever reason, there are people in the industry who absolutely believe that if Sony just disappeared, Microsoft would rule the world. I'm sorry, dude. Microsoft is making poor decisions. They don't run their businesses well. They bought Bethesda 2 years ago, and we're already seeing problems. 2 delays for Starfield. This game comes out, tons of bad press. Doesn't seem to be doing well at all with critics and gamers alike. Okay, this is Microsoft's doing. This is not Arkane or even Bethesda. I don't think it's their fault. And furthermore, I'll be the first to say I'm not a big Todd Howard fan. I think that guy bullshits way too fucking much, and I think he gets way too much praise for little things. However, he still has a name in this industry. Bethesda has made some of the most memorable games in the gaming industry with like Skyrim, Fallout 3, and now look at this. Now there's all this worry about Starfield. Is Starfield going to be 30 frames per second? That's a black eye. That is a big black eye for Starfield. Now, I know Todd Howard, I guess he came out and said he's not big on frames per second. He's fine with 30 frames per second. This could be a Bethesda problem as well. But, man, you have a first-person shooter like this, a game that's it seems to be very small and seems to be very focused on just, shooting vampires, looter shooter, small map, basic story. This game should look amazing. It should look amazing, play amazing. All of it should be just awesome, and it's not. I think it's important to note that because too many people are looking at PlayStation. They're looking at Xbox, and all they can think about is PlayStation. All they can do is talk about PlayStation. And that's a really bad way to have an argument. It really is. It's just not the way to go. You should not be. Your excuses for why Microsoft is doing poor should not have anything to do with what Sony is doing or not doing. I just think that's a narrow-minded argument, and it loses me every time. Anytime someone makes those arguments, I just tune you out because you don't have anything to say. Make a constructive argument. Tell me why Redfall is so good. Tell me why this game is so awesome. I mean, look at this game. It doesn't look good. It just doesn't look good. The just textures don't look good. It's not a good looking game. I'm going to come back and review this footage now because now I'm really excited. I just want to sit and watch this footage now and just point out the details that I'm seeing because you can see like the flickering of the trees and the leaves and stuff. The leaves are flat. They don't even look like they're blown in the wind or anything. So, but yeah, I mean, Redfall's not doing good. Sucks for Xbox gamers. I just wish that Xbox fans and gamers would stop blaming Sony fans. I wish they would hold Microsoft accountable, hold Phil Spencer accountable for the shortcomings and for the mistakes, because you're never, ever going to get anything good until you do. Defending mistakes and overlooking them and always pointing the blame at something else other than the person who's making the mistake, you're never going to achieve what you want. Your Xbox fans need to understand this. If you want to overtake Sony, if you want Sony to be second place in the gaming industry, then you have to call out Microsoft. You have to vote with your wallet. You have to hold them accountable, or you're going to continue to be in second place. You're just going to live in second place. Microsoft and Xbox will live in second place. They'll never, ever come out from underneath Sony, ever. They won't even be close. Because every time they make a mistake, the defense force runs out to their cameras and their YouTube channels, and they tell us what we see is not really what we see. It's crazy. It's crazy to me. And if Sony would just disappear, then everything would be perfect. Please. This is Microsoft's doing. This is Uncle Phil's doing. Hold them accountable. You want to win? Hold people accountable for their actions. It's the only way it's going to happen. Yeah, Redfall, exciting news. It's crazy to see. Hopefully Arkane nothing bad happens to Arkane. I don't want to see them get shut down. I don't think that's going to happen, but they're going to catch a lot of flack, and I just don't think it's their fault. So, but anyways, I'm probably going to break down another video later on. This is the hot topic right now, and I do want to be a part of the conversation because I do have a lot to say. But anyways, I'm going to let you go. You have a good night. I will talk to you later, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.